The boarding process had barely finished when whispers started circling the cabin. In seat 22C, a woman sat quietly, clutching her worn leather handbag as if it were her only anchor. She wasn't dressed like the other business travelers in polished suits. Her faded jeans, scuffed boots, and plain jacket made her stand out. To some passengers, she looked out of place. The man in 22B smirked when she struggled to fit her bag under the seat. A flight attendant leaned down politely but firmly. "Ma'am, you'll need to stow this properly." Her cheeks burned as she fumbled, aware of the impatient sighs around her. Someone behind her muttered, "Unbelievable, holding up the plane." When the drink service began, she asked only for water. The man beside her chuckled, tapping his glass of whiskey. "First time flying?" he asked mockingly. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. She had flown more times than she could count, but never like this. Not as a passenger, not with her wings folded. The hours dragged on. She kept her gaze on the window, ignoring the subtle stares, the whispered comments. To them, she was nobody. A nobody in 22C. But at 30,000 feet, things can change in an instant. Halfway across the Atlantic, turbulence shook the aircraft. Passengers gripped their armrests, drinks spilled, and anxious murmurs filled the cabin. Then, the captain's voice broke in over the intercom, steady but tense. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We've just been informed of a restricted airspace adjustment. We're being asked to hold position until further notice." The plane slowed, circling. Confusion rippled through the passengers. A businessman barked into his phone. "What do you mean we're delayed? I have a meeting in London." In 22C, the woman closed her eyes. Her hands tightened on her bag. She knew this wasn't routine. Something was happening. Something big. Minutes later, gasps spread through the cabin. Out the windows, two sleek fighter jets appeared, flanking the plane. Children pressed their noses to the glass, awestruck. Adults looked nervous. Whispers turned into speculation. "Why are they here? Are we in danger?" The captain's voice returned, calmer now. "Folks, nothing to worry about. We have a special escort today. Sit back and remain seated." But the escort wasn't for the plane. It was for her. The woman in 22C felt a lump in her throat as she spotted the call signs painted on the jet's fuselage. Familiar numbers, familiar insignia. One of them tipped its wings in salute. She inhaled sharply, blinking back tears. They hadn't forgotten. A boy across the aisle tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, why are those jets here?" The mother shook her head. "I don't know, honey." The woman finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "They're here because of me." Heads turned. Conversations hushed. The mocking smirk on the man in 22B vanished. "You," he said incredulously. She nodded, pulling something from her bag. Not a passport. Not a ticket stub. A small, weathered patch. Faded embroidery spelled out a call sign, one that once echoed over airwaves in combat zones, one carried with honor through missions few would ever know about. The realization spread through the rows. Gasps, murmurs, then silence. The woman they had dismissed as unremarkable, even laughable, was no ordinary passenger. She was a decorated pilot, once entrusted with missions that had safeguarded nations. The jets outside weren't here by coincidence. They were here out of respect. Out of gratitude. The boy's eyes widened. "You flew those planes?" She smiled gently. "Something like that." As the escort continued, the captain's voice grew warmer. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's not every day we get to honor one of our own. Seat 22C, welcome home." Tears welled in more than a few eyes. Strangers who had looked down on her now looked at her with reverence. Even the man in 22B shifted uncomfortably before finally whispering, "I'm sorry." She gave a soft nod, accepting without judgment. Outside, the jets held formation, their presence a silent reminder. And as the passengers watched in awe, the plane continued its journey, not just across the ocean, but toward a deeper understanding of the quiet hero who had been among them all along.